Hello everyone, welcome back to my next kind of raw unedited video. I'm sitting in my office and as you can see I have a lot of my miniatures set up what I can look at while I'm writing, and also you can see over here book covers from three of my first books. The Hanover Square Affair, it's the original cover for that. Perils of the Heart, which was my very first novel I ever got published. I was over the moon, let me tell you. And then over here we have The Pirate Next Door, which is one of my most popular books when I first started. By the way, I have all of those books available on my web store or Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google, Apple, etc. Except for Perils of the Heart. I have not actually re-released that one. I think about it every now and again, but I have so much to write and so much to do that it kind of gets away from me. So maybe one day I will re-release Perils of the Heart. It's kind of a fun sort of pirate romance, but not really. Kind of more an adventure story, and it's set, in the very early Regency period. Yeah, so maybe one day. Anyway, thank you for watching the videos that you do. I am very new at making videos, if you could not tell, and I'm trying to find some good editing software that will work for me. I'm using very basic editing software, and I'm hoping to get something a little better so that I can, have a little more pizzazz. But right now, I'm just going to chatter about my books, and I'm going to transition over to where you can see the actual books, and I'll be right back with you. Today I want to talk about this series, just give you a little bit of an overview of it. This is the first book of the Leonidas the Gladiator Mystery series. It's called Blood of a Gladiator, and this is book 1. This series is set in ancient Rome. It's in the time of Nero, and the first book is, I have to look, 62 AD. And Nero had been in power, I think, about 10 years. And a lot of changes were going on in Rome at that time. And I picked the reign of Nero because I figured he's a very interesting guy, a little over the top. So I figured he would be good for a lot of plots. So the premise is that Leonidas is a gladiator. He's one of the most famous gladiators in Rome. And one day, he's given his freedom. And he's not quite sure how he feels about that because, of course, he's always wanted his freedom, and because he's a gladiator, because he was sent to the games for a crime he actually did not commit, but he couldn't prove it, so there he is. And he's just figured he will just be there until he dies because he doesn't have enough money to buy his own freedom. But he is given, as they say, the rudis, which is a wooden sword that symbolized that the gladiator was free, that he could either retire or set up his own school if he wanted. A lot of gladiators did that. They didn't all die in the arena. Only a small percentage did, because gladiators were quite expensive, and the Leonistas and the owners did not want them necessarily to be killed because they could lose a lot of money. So the loser might be beat up and broken, but he would come back to fight another day, and a lot of them went to draws. So anyway, Leonidas is given his freedom by an unknown benefactor that we don't meet, and he doesn't know who it is. And he's also given a young woman to look after him, and she is a slave of Greek heritage, and she's a scribe. So she has no idea how to, look after anybody, keep house or cook or do anything like that, although most lower class Romans didn't cook themselves. They went out. And he's not really sure what to do with her either, so they kind of awkwardly muddle along. And this is the story of his first adventure. He decides to make some money because the benefactor gives them a place to live, but they have to actually keep themselves. So he takes a job as a bodyguard and for an ex-senator, and this is the story. And that kind of introduces Leonidas, Cassia, the scribe, and kind of his world, and we get into that. And the book, when it came out, I was not sure anyone was going to like it, because my most best-selling and most popular mystery series is the Captain Lacey Regency Mysteries, and this is a complete departure, and I was a little worried about it, but actually this book has done really, really well. It's gotten wonderful reviews, quite a number of reviews and ratings that are very high. So I was just, well, quite relieved, to tell the truth, because I've always wanted to write this book, but you have to make those choices, and I just decided it was time, and I did it. And my cover designer, I think, has done some really lovely covers for this series. So in between book 1 and book 2, I believe, I did this novella called Blood Debts, and this is just a shorter book, as you can see. And I actually wrote this one first. A lot of times when I am thinking of doing a new series, I often, especially in mysteries, I often write short stories, because I just want to see how the character works, how the story will develop, get to know their world. So oftentimes I will do that just for my own benefit, and it kind of introduces the characters, but it's not the beginning of the series. I'm a little weird. I write it when the characters are already kind of into their world. So book 1 always introduces the characters, but these prequel novellas, as I call them, kind of happen in the middle of the series. So if you were just starting out to read this, I would read Leonidas the Gladiator first and then go on to Blood Debts. I did that in the Captain Lacey book as well. I did 2 short stories for Captain Lacey, The Gentleman's Walking Stick and The Disappearance of Miss Sarah Oswald. And those actually were published in magazines, and they did really well. I was encouraged by that, and so I wrote the first Captain Lacey book. And the same with Cat Holloway Below Stairs Mysteries. I wrote A Soup Shone of Poison, and people liked that, and my editor liked it so much that she, assigned me to the series. But anyway, back to Leonidas. Blood Debts is just a short adventure of Cassia and Leonidas, when Cassia tells Leonidas that he needs to go and collect a debt from the baker that owes them money, because they had done a bodyguarding job for the baker who lives down the street, who provides them with their bread every day. And the baker says, well, I don't have the money, but you can go collect the debt that someone else owes to me. And Leonidas, grumbling, says, well, okay, fine, I'll do that. And so he goes to collect the debt, and then many things ensue from just that little errand there that he does. So no spoilers, but so book 1.5, I would say. Gladiator's Tale, which is book 2. And I think so far, this is so far my favorite book. I mean, the series is not very far along. I've only got 3 books and a couple novellas right now. But this is probably one of my favorites, because if we go back to Leonidas's Ludus, the Ludus is the school, the gladiator school, where they are trained before they go to their matches. And it's owned by a man called Emilianus, and Emilianus, called Emil for short, he's constantly trying to get Leonidas to come back to the Ludus to help him train other gladiators, because Leonidas was very good. But Leonidas said, I'm done with the arena. I'm done with killing. I'm done with training men who, become my good friends, and then they die or they get traded. I never see them again. And he actually did have a friend, a very good friend called Xerxes. That wasn't his real name. That was his stage name, as it were. And they were very close friends. And in Blood Debts, you meet Xerxes's widow, because Xerxes, of course, died. And Leonidas, and that happens before story time. And so Leonidas is still getting over the loss of his very close friend. and he doesn't want to have anything to do with gladiators in the arena anymore. But Emil comes to him and says, I've got a couple gladiators who are missing, and I really need them to come home, and I'm kind of worried about them because Emil, in spite of being a very hard-nosed boss, he is concerned about his guys. So Leonidas says, okay, fine, we'll go, and Cassia, who is always practical, says, well, sure, but, we need a fee, of course. And so she negotiates the fees, and she keeps all the money, and she's very good at that. She's a very good accountant. Leonidas goes out to find the guys, and as they say, a tale ensues. So that delves into the gladiators and their lives, and they come from all parts of the world, because whenever the Romans went out to conquer anybody, especially on the frontiers of Northern Europe, anybody they captured there, they brought back to either be slaves or gladiators or, whatever. If they were lucky, they got to be gladiators, because if you went to work in the mines or the quarries, it was a death sentence. So it was pretty sad. Now, Roman life could be really grim, but I'm trying in these books not to be, overly dark and everything is death, and disease and everything. I'm trying to kind of be a little bit more realistic in having, what real people did and how they lived. And you do see, the glittering villas of the very rich, but also how the poor lived as well, of course. And Leonidas and Cassia are kind of one step up from the dirt bottom rung, but they're not very high up in the social strata either. They're pretty much toward the bottom, but they are lucky they have a place to live and food to eat and things to do, and they are employed. So it's a very interesting foray into this world. And Leonidas, kind of as a gladiator, he can kind of go between, the very bottom and the very top, because people would hire gladiators to either be their bodyguards, like Nero had a gladiator who was one of his head bodyguards, not the Praetorian guards, but rich people would hire gladiators to come and entertain, either by talking about being gladiators or demonstrating their skills, things like that. And of course, the ladies were very interested in having them over for other reasons. And Leonidas has to put up with that too. One thing that is kind of misleading that I learned is that, everyone says that, of course, the rich people, when they had their banquets, they ate weird stuff like, lark's tongues and dormice and things like that. And they did eat that. But that was more like for lavish banquets that they put on to impress their friends. And it was really only the very wealthy who did that. And also they were ridiculed for it, because Romans really prized moderation. You wouldn't think so, but they did. They really prized moderation in all things, and eat and drink, clothing, other activities that, I won't say out loud, but modesty was prized. And most people every day ate fairly normal things, like, a piece of meat with vegetables. They ate a lot of vegetables, actually. And greens. They would eat a lot of salad and greens, and desserts that, we would eat ourselves, more like, a little bit like baklava and pastries and things like that going to be different, but very similar. Anyway, so A Gladiator's Tale, I enjoyed writing it, and it is probably, so far, one of my favorites. I'm hoping that, other books will be even better. This is book 3. It's called The Ring That Caesar Wore. And Leonidas, before he became a gladiator, when he was very young, a very young teenager, he was apprenticed to a builder who would construct the buildings in Rome. that construction business is very fascinating to me. They used all kinds of machines and cranes, and a lot of the building techniques that have come down to us were started there. And of course, the famous Vitruvius, who wrote this book on architecture, De Architecturis, outlines everything in great detail about building in ancient Rome. And so Leonidas was a builder, and he has met another builder. His boss, Leonidas's boss, was killed, and Leonidas was blamed, and that's why he was originally arrested and sent to the games. And there's a little more to it to that, but it's in the book. And he's kind of wanted to be a builder again. But he's a little hesitant when this guy asks him, says, well, you have experience, come and work on my building site. And they go down to the warehouse district, which is also a very interesting place, kind of behind the Aventine Hill, past the Circus Maximus, and around the Aventine Hill, and down by the river is a warehouse district where all the boats would unload and all the goods would be put in these warehouses to be distributed throughout Rome. And Leonidas is a little unsure he wants to do this, but he takes the job because, it brings back a lot of painful memories. So he does finally agree. And on the first day, or one of the first days, when they're walking through the site and looking for things, he comes upon a ring. And it's unusual. And he takes it to Cassia, and Cassia says, this is very unusual, and we need to research this. And the tale kind of unfolds from there about who the ring belonged to. The writing inside is not Latin, it's Etruscan. So that sends Cassia down a rabbit hole, as they say. And Nero gets wind of this, and Nero is always interfering in Leonidas's business. Previous books, he does call Leonidas up to the Palatine Hill and says, you need to tell me what's going on and find out things. And of course, I'm Nero, and you can't disobey me. So Leonidas and Cassia do things for Nero from time to time. Okay, and then I have one more novella that I wrote just this past December. It's called Saturnalian Gifts, and I don't have it in print because it's a short novella, but I do have it in print in this anthology. This is, move some of these books here. Crimes of Christmas Past. I took 3 of my shorter holiday novellas, and all Christmas, and put them together into this anthology. So Saturnalian Gifts is here in print. Also, I put in Mrs. Holloway's Christmas Pudding, which is a novella, and the Cat Holloway Below Stairs Mysteries series. And then the third one is called A Matter at New Year's, and that is another new series I'm doing, which features a protagonist called Robert Archer. Robert Archer's series is set in the Regency, but it also has elements of the supernatural. In this one, Robert Archer meets some shapeshifters who ask for his help. And I'll talk about the Robert Archer series in another time. And, my cat has come to visit. Yes. There we go. Can't have a writer without a cat, right? All right. So Saturnalian Gifts is set at Saturnalia. And Leonidas and Cassia are asked by Nero, to find a thief, and they have a little adventure there. Now you can find all of these books. I've got them on my web store in print and also in ebook. So if you prefer the ebooks, I have those on my web store. I also have them on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google, Apple, etc. And they're in print on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any place else that print books can be sold. Like bookshop.org, I believe, has connections where you can order the print books. I'm not quite sure about that, but I know Amazon and Barnes & Noble have it. Anyway, thank you for listening to me blather on about Leonidas the Gladiator. And at some point, I hope my videos will get a little more sophisticated. And we'll get a little bit more visits from this guy here, who's, you know, not too sociable. I will see you on my next video, where I will discuss either more of my books or my writing process, or I'll let you know. Thank you so much. In the description box down below, I will have links to the pages with more information about these books and to my bookshop. And also, that would be great if you would like this video and also subscribe. Thank you.